Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show. As former President Joe Biden excommunicated himself from the Catholic Church by recently becoming a Freemason. You know, we've spoken before about his canonical status as a Catholic, a self-professed Catholic, especially in light of some of his positions on the pro-life issues. And we've pointed out that there's some serious question whether or not Biden was in full communion with the Catholic Church when he was president. And certainly now that this has happened, there's even more of a question mark on his status with the Catholic Church, given that there is an automatic excommunication penalty for anyone who joins the Freemasons, for a Catholic who joins the Freemasons. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to remind y'all, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Would really, really appreciate your support. And while you're at it, hit the like button. Let me share my screen and show you the news. Just came across this last night. I said, I got to cover this on a weekend show. Too important to pass up. Well, here it is. Various photos of Biden joining the Freemasons or becoming a Freemason. You can see here being embraced. And this is from the lodge, the website of the lodge that received him. Resolution of membership, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. It says, it's with great pleasure that I, Victor C. Major the 27th, the most worshipful Grand Master, welcome our newest member to the Prince Hall family. So now he's a member. On Sunday, January 19th, 2025, at a private event, Master Mason membership with full honors were conferred upon President Biden. So not only is he a member, but he is a Master Mason with full honors in recognition of his outstanding service to the United States of America. And then there's a resolution of membership that says, to be a Freemason is to be part of a brotherhood dedicated to personal growth, service to others, and the pursuit of knowledge and truth. It's an honor to belong to an organization that promotes these timeless values. Whereas President Biden has demonstrated exceptional dedication and service to the United States of America, whereas his service reflects the core values of the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of South Carolina, including brotherly love, relief, and truth. Whereas President Biden's contributions have significantly benefited the citizens of the United States of America, therefore be it resolved that I, 27th Most Worshipful Grand Master Victor C. Major, on behalf of the members of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of South Carolina, hereby confer membership upon Biden in recognition of his outstanding service to the United States. Be it further resolved that this resolution of membership be recorded in the archives of the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of South Carolina. Given on, look at the date, the 19th of January, one day before he left office. One day before he left office. Don't know if he accepted it later or accepted it the same day. Either way, he accepts it, right? I mean, it's very, very apparent right here. He accepts that he is now a Master Mason with this lodge. MSN gives a little bit more information about this particular lodge, saying Parish Hall Freemasonry, which takes the name of its founder, is a historically Black sect of Freemasonry founded in 1775 by freed African slaves, according to the lodge's page. Biden is now the 16th president in American history to become a Freemason, according to Masonic Find. Well, I have to, of course, bring to your attention, not for the first time on this channel, but bring to your attention what Ratzinger has decided, actually what John Paul II with Ratzinger decided on the question of Catholics joining the Freemasons, and then the confirmation that Pope Francis, through Fernandez, made less than a year ago on the status of Catholics who join the Freemasons. Is this something that results in an automatic excommunication? You see, there's two different kinds of excommunications. Oh, really, there's more than that, but let's speak of two main kinds. You can have declared excommunications and automatic excommunications. A declared excommunication would be the competent authority, perhaps a pope, maybe a bishop, depending on the case, would declare that somebody within their flock has committed an offense that deserves a penalty of perhaps excommunication. Sometimes there could be penalties that are lower than that. But according to the one who's in authority over them, they could bring out the big guns and excommunicate them. And they declare it and they make it public so that everyone is clear, everyone's on the same page. This person has been excommunicated. Excommunication would effectively mean that this person is no longer in communion with the Catholic Church. This person is not able to, for instance, receive the Eucharist during a liturgy. The way to have an excommunication lifted would normally to go to the one who declared it. So if a bishop declares it, then go to the bishop and get right with him, and they will lift the excommunication. In the case of a pope imposing an excommunication, one would need to go through the Holy See. That's a declared excommunication. Now, automatic excommunication is going to be something that happens automatically, regardless of a bishop or a pope declaring that somebody has been excommunicated. It happens automatically whenever you do certain things as a Catholic. So, for instance, one thing that incurs an automatic excommunication is obstinate maintaining of a heresy. If you obstinately, with your will, hold to a heresy or commit an act of schism or an apostasy, automatic excommunication, even without the church declaring it. It's already happened just by virtue of the fact that you did the act, in the Code of Canon Law already says it's automatic. It's unfortunate that there really is a notion as automatic excommunications, because a lot of bishops have been able to kind of hide behind that and have failed in their duties to declare particular public figures as excommunicated, because they'll say, they're already, automatically excommunicated. Whereas the vast majority of people don't know that a person might be automatically excommunicated. It would be helpful if they came out and publicly declared it. But a lot of bishops kind of hide behind this notion of automatic excommunication and then don't do their job in excommunicating someone and declaring them. In the case of Vigano, we saw Vigano, Archbishop Vigano, former nuncio to the United States. We saw in his particular case, as I told y'all several years ago, he has already automatically excommunicated himself. 1 year after I said that, to the very day that I said it, the Vatican came out and confirmed exactly what I said and said Vigano has automatically excommunicated himself. So the Vatican didn't actually excommunicate him. They said that he has already excommunicated himself. They just made it known so that everybody can be on the same page. Okay. Another example would be if somebody procures an abortion, automatic excommunication. Striking a pope is another offense that incurs an automatic excommunication. Well, turns out that joining a group like the Freemasons, automatic excommunication. And some people have pushed back on that and said, the Vatican's kind of backed away from that. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Let me show you that that's not the case. Let me produce the receipts so we can all be on the same page. Let's start here. It's from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, now known as the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. One moment. Sorry, dealing with some allergies here. Now known as the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, at the time it was known as the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, also known as the Holy Office, aka the Inquisition. Been through a lot of name changes. Well, in the year 1983, when Ratzinger was prefect and Pope John Paul II was Pope, Ratzinger releases this document, which John Paul II ratifies and thus makes part of his papal magisterium. So it's authoritative, it's magisterial. John Paul, through Ratzinger, says the Declaration on Masonic Associations. It's been asked whether there has been any change in the Church's decision in regard to Masonic associations since the new Code of Canon Law, that was 1983, does not mention them expressly, unlike the previous code. So the 1917 Code of Canon Law explicitly mentioned, joining Freemasons automatically excommunicated. 1983 was a little bit more vague, talking about joining certain groups, but didn't specifically name them. So some people were like, well, you see, not necessarily excommunicated if you join the Masons. Well, to clarify, they say, this sacred congregation is in a position to reply to this circumstance and due to an editorial criterion, which was followed also in the case of other associations, likewise unmentioned, inasmuch as they are contained in wider categories. Therefore, the Church's negative judgment in regard to Masonic association remains unchanged, since their principles have always been considered irreconcilable with the doctrine of the Church, and therefore membership in them remains forbidden. So not only is it forbidden, but the same penalties apply, which is automatic excommunication. Why? Because they fundamentally are at odds with the Catholic faith and what they profess. The faithful who enroll in Masonic associations are in a state of grave sin. In other words, they've committed a grave act and may not receive Holy Communion. So they would need to go to confession and be reconciled. Of course, the way to do that with an automatic excommunication, according to the Code of Canon Law, if this wasn't something that specifically the Holy See has to lift, you could go to any local bishop. Any bishop could really lift it. Or a priest that he has given those faculties to. Or any priest who doesn't have the faculties to ordinarily lift an excommunication, as long as you speak to that priest and tell him within a few weeks you will go and also be reconciled with the bishop. Okay, so it is not within the competence of local ecclesiastical authorities to give a judgment on the nature of Masonic associations, which would imply a derogation from what has been decided above. And in line with the Declaration of the Sacred Congregation issued on 1981, February 17. Again, received by John Paul II. This was in an audience directly with the Pope. So it is magisterial. Now, some people are like, okay, well, is that still valid? Does that still hold? Well, the way it works is that, unless some kind of legislation has reversed that, it holds, right? But just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, Pope Francis, who has often himself been accused of being a Freemason, as many have accused also Cardinal Fernandez of being one. Pope Francis, through Cardinal Fernandez, on November 13th of 2023, came out and confirmed that decision of John Paul II and confirms one is still automatically excommunicated and may not receive communion if they join the Masons. So, Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, note for the audience with the Holy Father, 13th of November, 2023. Recently, His Excellency, Most Reverend Julito Cortez, after explaining with concern the situation caused in his diocese, by the continuous rise in the number of the faithful enrolled in Freemasonry, asked for suggestions regarding how to respond to this reality suitably from a pastoral point of view, taking into account also the doctrinal implications related to this phenomenon. Membership in Freemasonry is very significant in the Philippines. It involves not only those who are formally enrolled in Masonic lodges, but more generally, a large number of sympathizers and associates who are personally convinced that there is no opposition between membership in the Catholic Church and Masonic lodges. So there's people in the Philippines saying, no big difference. You can be both. To address this appropriately, it was decided that the dicastery would respond by involving the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines itself, notifying the conference that it would be necessary to put in place a coordinated strategy among the individual bishops that envisions two approaches. On the doctrinal level, so speaking here doctrinally about Freemasonry, it should be remembered that active membership in Freemasonry by a member of the faithful is forbidden because of the irreconcilability between Catholic doctrine and Freemasonry. And look at what they're quoting. 1983 Ratzinger, right? The thing we just read. And the guidelines published by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. Therefore, those who are formally and knowingly enrolled in Masonic lodges and have embraced Masonic principles fall under the provisions in the mentioned above declaration. All right. What was that declaration? Declaration on Masonic associations. Okay. What did the Declaration on Masonic Associations say? They're in a state of grave sin, may not receive Holy Communion. Why? Because they're automatically excommunicated. So, this has been confirmed very, very recently. What does that mean with Biden? Well, it would appear he has automatically excommunicated himself. Now, I have seen some canon lawyers try to quibble over this issue, strain at a gnat, and try to say, well, he didn't join. The membership was conferred on him, but he didn't join. Distinction without a difference when it comes to the real issue here. And that is obviously embracing something that is contrary to the Catholic faith is what is causing the excommunication. And clearly, whenever one receives that membership, whether you want to say they joined or they received, it doesn't matter. You still get to the same endpoint. But there will be people who scrupulously try to say, well, technically and all that. I'm sure, people will try to do that. I don't think it's very convincing. Now, what about a declared excommunication? Okay, I think it's pretty obvious an automatic excommunication has already happened. I think that already happened with his heretical views and embracing of heresy. But even if you weren't convinced there, okay, all right. Well, it has happened with him joining or receiving membership in a Masonic lodge. But when it comes to declaring this, who has the actual authority? Is it going to be the Cardinal of Washington, D.C.? Is it going to be the USCCB? Mm-mm. According to the Code of Canon Law, it would need to be Pope Francis himself or his successor. Canon 1405, paragraph 1, it is solely the right of the Roman Pontiff himself to judge in the cases mentioned in Canon 1401 those who hold the highest civil office of a state. That would obviously be someone like Biden, especially if he received the membership while he was still president. If he received the membership after he was president, that canon wouldn't apply. So there's going to be a question on when did he receive it? Did he receive it on the 19th or after the 20th? But really, doesn't matter either way, because I think it's pretty apparent he's already automatically excommunicated himself. But again, the problem with automatic excommunications is you got people who will quibble over them, people who argue over them. And it's not like you got an automatic excommunication, measuring device that you can put on, some goggles you put on, and you look at a person and say, oh, that one's been automatically excommunicated, but that one hasn't been. This is not something that you can just see and perceive in a person. And as long as that happens, people are going to always push back and say, well, it didn't happen, or, well, this, blah, 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 blah. All right. So I think this, again, shows kind of the useless point to these automatic excommunications. They don't seem to be very helpful. But even if they were, in this particular case, when you have a public figure like Biden, it shouldn't be left to speculation. This should be one of those where the church immediately comes out and says, hey, this person has excommunicated themselves. Now, do you think that's going to happen? Nope. Didn't happen while he was president for 4 years. Nikki asked Michael explain why he wasn't declared excommunicated or even excommunicated while president. Exactly. Now, the bishops and even the Pope are able to respond to some issues the same day that they happen. Pope Francis was accused of using a gay slur. He responded and apologized that day. That day. Some of the bishops in the USCCB, soon as Trump is elected, they can respond right away about migrant issues and stuff like that. But when it comes to, I don't know, Biden shouldn't be receiving communion for 4 years as president, a lot harder to get that one done. In light of that history, in light of that inability for the shepherds to do something about this and to speak up, in light of that, do you think it's likely that Pope Francis or maybe the USCCB will come out and confirm that Biden has automatically excommunicated himself? Not a chance. Will not happen. For better or worse, it will not happen. And you know what? If it does happen, I will come here on YouTube live in sackcloth and ashes. I will repent. And I will say, woe is me, for I'm unclean, and blah, 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 and show you how horrible of a person I was for misjudging the bishops. But I can safely say, confidently say, it's just not going to happen. But if it does, you better believe there will be a I'm so sorry, guys stream. I'd be happy to do that. I would love to be wrong about that one. I'd rather be wrong about that than be right. It's one of those things you don't want to be right about, but I think I'm right on this one. I think it's pretty apparent. Be that as it may. For those of y'all who are watching, you're now informed about what the Code of Canon Law says, about the situation, and you're in a position to make a rational decision on whether or not Biden has automatically excommunicated himself and whether or not he should be receiving communion in Catholic churches until this is addressed, until he's reconciled. You're in a position to make an informed decision here, an informed opinion. But I think you know that the vast majority of people in the United States and the world abroad don't know their left from their right about this situation, and they won't know that he has automatically excommunicated himself. They're not going to know that. They're going to think that he is a Catholic in good standing. And that's scandalous, isn't it? You know why? Because if people think that a person is in good standing when they also see them doing things that are completely at odds with the church, that does what? It gives the impression that the church is fine with doing this. It causes scandal. It causes people to think, well, I guess there's nothing wrong with becoming a Mason. I guess I can do it too. Biden did it. Nothing happened to Biden. Well, because of that, really, the bishop should come out and say something. Because the average person doesn't know about automatic excommunications. They're not going to know their left from their right. And they will be misled on this situation. Shifting gears very briefly, I do want to mention it. Glinda said, Richard Williamson, Bishop Richard Williamson has died. I heard that he was dying. I saw some posts saying that he died and then others coming back and saying, no, he didn't die. I haven't seen actual confirmation that has happened, but I know that he was in the hospital and has received last rites and things like that. Bishop Williamson is one of those 4 bishops that Lefebvre, the founder of the Society of St. Pius X, consecrated illicitly in 1988, contrary to John Paul II's prohibition when he told him not to do this. Thus, Lefebvre and the 4 bishops were automatically excommunicated, according to the Code of Canon Law and according to the warning that the Holy See had sent to him. And John Paul II confirmed it afterwards. We saw one of those bishops recently died. We know that Williamson was kicked out of the SSPX for disobedience, ironically. I believe he had already incurred another automatic excommunication because he had illicitly ordained some bishops, illicitly consecrated them. You see, those 4 bishops, Benedict lifted their excommunication, hoping that there would be reconciliation. He still said that there is a doctrinal division between the church and these bishops, but he was hoping that there would be reconciliation. There wasn't. Now, Lefebvre's excommunication wasn't lifted, mind you. The church can and has lifted and also imposed excommunications on a person who is deceased. But in the case of Lefebvre, it has not been lifted. But in the case of these 4 bishops, their excommunications were lifted, but it appears that Williamson had incurred another excommunication through more illicit consecrations. Another one of the bishops recently passed away, leaving 3. And if Williamson just passed away, that would leave 2. Which would mean what we already knew, and that is the SSPX is probably going to be getting ready to consecrate more bishops. Will they have permission from Rome to do so? Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. But we'll see. We'll see. For those who say that the SSPX is not in schism, well, as soon as they go to illicitly consecrate more bishops without a mandate from the Holy See, there will be no 2 ways about it at that point. Automatic excommunication. Of course, the SSPX will still try to say that doesn't apply in a state of emergency and blah, blah, blah. All that we've responded to right here on the channel numerous times. Yes, I heard about that, but I don't know if he has actually passed away. I haven't seen any kind of official confirmation about that. But let me know if y'all do find something official, please. Okay. How would I respond to the Code of Canon Law prescribing a just punishment? Well, just punishment could include excommunication, but number 2, Ratzinger indicates that they cannot receive communion. If you can't receive communion, it's because you've been excommunicated, right? All right. So when Fernandez backs up what Ratzinger says, the person is in a state of grave sin and may not receive Holy Communion, that's because they're automatically excommunicated. So hopefully that helps. Paul says this bit of news just reinforces my opinion that Biden is in grave error and is causing scandal and is in schism. I agree that his acts are causing scandal, but I do have to point out the obvious. Which is more scandalous? Which is more scandalous? A heretic doing weird things like becoming a Freemason? A heretic committing grave sin? Or the bishop's not saying anything about it? Now, both are scandalous, but which is worse? A heretic being a heretic, or the bishops not saying anything about it and not doing anything about it and not addressing it, but meanwhile addressing other things? I think you know the answer to that as far as which is more scandalous. So while both are scandalous, I do think there is a greater burden here. There's a greater amount of sin in one of those. You can figure it out, though. Hopefully, however, this helps put things into perspective. It gives you an informed opinion on the situation. If you disagree with my take, love to hear from you. Put it in the comment section. Would love your feedback. If you agree with my take, also still like to hear from you as well. Put it in the comment section. Either way, hit that subscribe button. I really, really would appreciate your support. And if you want to see more videos like this, you need to hit the subscribe button so that the channel can reach new people and I can continue to do what I do here. Also consider supporting me at Patreon. You'll go to patreon.com/Reason and Theology. I've been doing a lot of patron-only content for patrons on Patreon, and we'll continue to do so. And you'll get an insider look into all sorts of stuff. And you'll get a deeper perspective on situations in the church and catechesis and church history. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show so it continues to grow and reach more people, please become a patron on Patreon. So patreon.com/Reason and Theology. I'll see y'all soon for another show. All right. God bless. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you want to support the channel, visit patreon.com/Reason and Theology. Are you seeking clarity in the midst of confusion about Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism? In my book, Answering Orthodoxy, I offer a biblical and historical response to the most common objections that Eastern Orthodox offer against the Catholic Church. This book is for anyone searching for the truth, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or simply trying to make sense of the differences between Catholics and Orthodox. Order your copy today and discover the rational, biblical, and historical basis for the Catholic Church. Visit Amazon to order your copy today.